All right, Joel Gausten here from joelgausten.com. For this conversation, I'm joined by somebody I've known for 30 years, who I recently reconnected with in person about a month or so ago. It's my great pleasure to welcome my old friend, Sal Bee. Sal, my brother.
Hey Joel, how are you, man? It was so great to see you at the wedding, man. It
Yeah,
brought back so many old memories.
man, it really did, and it was so cool because, I met you in 95 through the Misfits. And seeing all the old crew there
Yeah.
and look, meeting people I hadn't met before. I got talking with Bobby Bloodshed. Is that the name he goes under? Or Bobby
Yeah.
Feast?
Blood Feast.
Blood Feast. Thank you.
Bobby Blood Feast. And you know Goolsby, right?
Yeah, I don't think I've ever been formally introduced to him, but I've seen him around. I've
But
seen him
he
all the
was sitting at our table.
Yeah,
He's such a down to earth guy, man. He's got so much talent. He's got a great band, and he's been working really hard for a long time. I wish him
yeah.
nothing but the best.
Yeah, absolutely. But talking to guys I didn't know who had a kind of a similar story to mine, like, oh yeah, I met Jerry and like he invited me over and I started helping him out. And next thing you know, 30 years later, we're all at Uncle Chudley's wedding. So
Well, might as well tell everybody what happened. We'd go to Vernon, and Jerry and Doyle were looking for singers and drummers,
yep,
and me and you. This is before Chud, before Michael came. Me and you, we would play literally 30 songs
yep,
in an hour,
yeah,
and that was a lot of fun. You were perfect, and I tried my best. I mean, I was singing in three bands. I didn't know how to sing. That they sent me. That's how I got hooked up with Marty and Don Lawrence on 72nd Street. And they, not that I can sing, but they taught me how to keep it above the palate, the the strength in your stomach, how your voice is like a concert hall. Your mouth is shaped like a concert hall. And they just, and I'd go through the scales with them. And then obviously, Chud and Michael came along and they fit like a glove.
yeah.
And one day they all came with me to my vocal lesson. And the four of them sat there and I did my lesson. It's a half-hour lesson. The scales on, he played the scales on the piano, and I would, sing the scales with him. So they left the room, and it was just me and Don Lawrence. And he's like, Sal, I have to tell you, doing scales in front of people is the hardest thing. And he goes, you nailed it. I'm like, yes. So that was the beginning of the Misfits 2.0.
Yeah.
And we had something to do with that.
Well, I'll tell you, man, I had Chud on about a year ago. Last Halloween, Chud was on the podcast. And I told him, man, that Misfits lineup, that Graves Chud
Yeah,
version,
of
will always be my Misfits because I was in the room as you were when those guys were writing some of that stuff that ended up on American Psycho and
course.
so
Yeah.
to see the stuff grow from the ground up and see how hard those guys, especially Jerry, worked in those days. I mean,
He's still, you still can't hold him down. He's nonstop. He's just got so much energy. And Doyle is maybe my best friend.
so for the viewer who may not be familiar with you and your history, you came up in Lodi, New Jersey. You've known those guys since the 70s. You've done a lot of great music in your own right.
Thank
Most
you.
people, I think, 90s forward Misfits guys would know you as the singer for Sardonica and the bass player of Sardonica. You also had a great band called Slaughtered Grace. Uh,
Yeah,
who,
yeah.
who-
That band should have made it.
yeah,
We should have been Pantera.
yeah, yeah. You
But
guys were Pantera before Pantera.
you know, in rock and roll, not only do you have to be an incredible musician, but you basically have to win the rock and roll lottery, which is like 300 million to one. You know, just think about how many bands there are in every town across the country, and the percentile of making it is like comes down to winning the rock and roll lottery.
Let's kind of bring it back to the beginning with you. As I said, you're from Lodi,
I am.
and you were right there in it, man. I know Chudley was your neighbor, right? In those early days.
Well, let's start from the beginning before I even picked up the bass. I knew Jerry basically since sixth, fifth, sixth grade playing basketball at Hilltop School in Lodi. We went to the same grammar school together, and then we'd always go by his house. And Jane was just the coolest mom ever, 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 ever. And uh, Fish, who basically taught me how to play the bass, had an apartment on Avenue C in the Woodmere section in Glenn's part of town, and they would jam in the basement. They had, not a formed group, but a bunch of musicians would get together, and during their breaks, um, there was a bar built into the basement, so they'd go hang out by the bar, and Danny H, this incredible bass player, um, would sit behind the drums and just like tap out a little beat, and he'd point with his head like this to me, and I'd be like, "What?" And his bass was laying over there, so I'd pick up the bass. So he basically put the bass in my hands the first time. He showed me two notes. We tap it out. I went home. I added a third note, and I wrote my first song. And I basically had a band before I knew how to play.
Mm,
But it kind of worked out. And this guy Danny H, get back to the Misfits real quick. He jammed with another Lodi guitar player, Joe Bart, and I guess it was 75, maybe 76. They would jam with Glenn, and they would do Doors, Sabbath, and Joe Bart would say he would squint his eyes and he says he would come down and he knew every word, and he was so far ahead of the curve, and he had these pointy shoes. I asked him, "Where'd you get those shoes?" And like back then, you knew he was just, like I said, so far ahead of the curve.
yeah.
And like I guess it was the spring of '77. He got together with Jerry, because I remember coming back from the basketball games. They were talking about the rehearsals and stuff like that. And then they got Prochet, who was one of the boys. And to me, that might have been one of the best lineups with Mr. Jim, Prochet, Jerry, and Glenn.
Yeah.
I mean, that set the wheels in motion. And Jim left to join this band, the Continental Crawlers, who was really good.
Mm,
But what are you doing? um, and then they went through, I guess it was Joey Image, and then they had the Merp. The Merp was supposed to be the drummer
yeah.
on the Earth AD record, and they rehearsed for months. And that he they and what happened was, I was there. They were going to a photo shoot for the record, and Merp's fiance and mother and father were in this like 20-foot long Lincoln in front of Jerry's house. And the ultimatum was, if you go with them, the wedding's off. So, in full makeup, Jimmy left the band and got in the car and left. And the next day, he said Glenn was banging on his door like for an hour, ripped the screen off the screen door. And I don't know exactly how they got Googie, but I would go into the city and pick them up and bring them to rehearsals. And that was for Earth AD. So I guess Jimmy came in after that.
Mm,
Yeah, I would say he replaced Googie. I would think that would be the timeline. And after Googie, it was probably Robo.
right.
Then well, after Jim, it was Googie. Well, Googie, the Merc, and then Robo, and that was the classic Earth AD lineup,
Right.
which was at the time. I don't think there was anything faster. I mean, what was that released? 83.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the guys on the West Coast were, the Exodus guys, they were playing really fast. But I mean, the second side of that record is just so powerful and so fast. And getting back to me, um, so when Danny H gave me the bass, I borrowed one of my brother's basses, and I just started. I didn't. I never had the ear to be a great musician, but I was very creative. So I just started writing songs, and Fish, I'd come up with ideas, and Fish would refine them to make them musically correct because he's a brilliant musician. And we got a drummer, and we had 8 songs, and we went out and played. We were punk rock, and the drummer's name was John Brinkers, and he he left,
What
and
was the
then
band called? Was this called Sardonica back then?
it was fit. We had no name. We had 8 songs. The band was ripping. So he watched. He was up late one night and watched Mr. Sardonicus, the movie. I don't know if you've ever seen it,
Yeah,
but
yeah, yeah.
it actually won an Academy Award for Best Makeup in like 1962. So that he's like Sardonica. I'm like, whatever. So we were all of a sudden we were Sardonica, and one of my regrets is not having those 8 songs on a recorded record. So that every band's got regrets, but those first 8 songs they ended up on different records here and there. But we did go to record them one time, but it was just the producer was just it didn't work, and we went to Tracks East
Mm,
and in Pearl River, very very good studio, and we recorded the Grins Again record,
mm.
which is well this one right here.
Yep. Yep. Classic Jersey
It
record.
is, it is, it is. I'm very proud of it. I'm
Yeah.
very proud of it. It's every song's a ripper, um, and it's just when we played it live, we recorded it live. The engineer had to get the sound up. A guy named Steve Ebbets,
Hmm.
incredible. And he goes, "All right, come on, let's take a listen." So we might have played 3 sounds. So we go into the room, and he does the playback, and we're sitting there looking at each other like, "Is this us?" Here we are playing local bars to like 10 people, and now we sound like freaking Metallica.
Right.
It was just and obviously the prize from that was the biker single,
Yeah. Yeah.
and that might have been our best song. I came up with the riff, and I had originally offered it to Jerry. Thank God he didn't want it. So that's probably our signature song.
Yeah. The one recording of yours that I would consider my favorite was the first one I ever heard because I had met you, like I said earlier, up there at the shop, and he handed me a cassette of a Sardonica EP called Cup of My Body.
Yeah, that was,
Love
I
that.
believe, just a bunch of outtakes. Um, that I couldn't release stuff fast enough. And my brother, who's a lifelong musician from the '60s, I'm like, well, we're doing a single. He's like, why? I'm like, that's what we did. That's what bands do. And uh, the Cup of My Body cassette was a strong cassette, and it was a bunch of outtakes from a bunch of different recordings.
Mm.
But I believe the Slaughtered Grace was our first. Sardonica was together for maybe 2 or 3 years, and Fish got married and had a kid. We lost John Brinker. We had Alex. He got married and had a kid. And I'm like, there's this other band from Lodi, Slaughtered Grace, who needed a singer, and I stepped in, and that record, called This Planet,
Yep.
on Cyclopean Music,
Jerry's
all
label.
the incredible artwork, um, was our really first um, taste of the studio. At least for me, it was. And I couldn't sing. I couldn't sing back then. It was still in my throat. It was it was below the palate. It wasn't it was and it kind of sounds good, but I'd wish I had took those singing lessons prior to recording that record. And I mean, if you look online, the thing's going between 250 and 500.
Yeah.
I think specifically because it's on Cyclopean. But that was our first trip, and then we did Steve Evans at the Grins Again record at uh, uh in Pearl River at Tracks East, and then
Well, hang on one second, because
yeah.
between the Slaughter of Grace thing and Grins Again, if I have my timeline right, um, Sardonica got rolling again, but you had Chudley on drums.
Well, what happened was we went. The guys came back. Well, what happened was Slaughtered Grace had played a show at the Pipeline opening up for MOD,
Hmm.
and Fish came and he saw what a riot it was, and he's like, "We're getting Sardonica back together," and the Slaughtered Grace had started to fracture a bit. So I kind of put that on hold, and we went back to Sardonica. And what happened with that was we probably went through our third drummer, and me and Fish are in the basement on Garibaldi Avenue, and we've been hearing this guy playing the drums, and he had that perfect beat, 1 2 1. He was a rock drummer, but he was very you know into the punk. And so here we go. We walk around the block. We knock on his door. He answers the door, and we're like, "Hey, man, we got a punk band. We need a drummer. Well, I live in your backyard. You want to jam?" He's like, Chud. Yeah, 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 yeah. So he joined the band, and we played a show at the Pipeline, and that's when I gave him the name Doctor.
Mm.
I introduced him as Doctor Chud. So that's kind of how that happened. And I'm not sure how he ended up well, I'll tell you exactly what happened. They were Jerry and Doyle.
Hmm.
This is after the Christ the Conqueror. Actually put an ad in the Aquarian saying,
Yeah.
"Remember the Misfits, we need drummer, singer." And um, they were rehearsing in Lodi in Merp's basement. And Merp, had 2 kids, his wife. So a lot of times he wasn't behind the kit. So Chud, who was in Sardonica at the time, came with me to the rehearsals. Like I'd help out with the vocals. And if Merp wasn't behind the kit, Chud jumped behind the kit,
Hmm.
and he just kind of fit in. So that's kind of how Chud's introduction to Jerry and Doyle came about.
Hmm.
And then they came down and they took all their amps out of Merp's basement, and they said, if you want to jam, you got to come up to Vernon. So they did that for a while, and then, you know, then we jammed, me and you jammed with them.
Yeah, yeah.
And like I said, they found Chud and Graves, and they fit like a glove. And the first time they played, I think it was at a Typo Negative
It
show,
was. It was at the
and
chance.
Kenny sang.
Hmm.
The guitar player, Kenny, is that his name? Yeah, Kenny. He sang. I think they did 3 songs, and after that, we went to the place on I think Jesse Malin and Howie owned it.
Yeah, Coney Island High.
Right.
But
And that was the it was Halloween night, and Murphy's Law was like headlining. There was a bunch of bands. So like uh I think Electric Frankenstein and Sardonica were supposed to go on before the Misfits. And it was just like Doyle's like, if we don't go on now, I'm leaving.
right.
And it was perfect because the crowd was still there,
Mm.
and they nailed it. And I actually got to sing 3 songs with them.
Yeah, I've seen the video. A lot of people don't know this that so Halloween, Misfits do that thing with Typo at Roseland, right?
Correct.
Then they do Coney Island High, but the night before, the 30th, they did the same thing at the Chance in Poughkeepsie. A lot of people don't remember that because I was with them that night. I
I
drove.
don't think I was there.
Yeah, it was in the van, it was me, Jerry and Doyle, Kenny, Mike, and Mike's girlfriend at the time.
Do you remember the band they played with? Was Typo?
Yeah, the bill was Typo Negative, Electric Hellfire Club, and his band called Lucia.
Okay.
And we missed everybody. We turned up halfway through Typo's set. So, Mo was like, for the viewer, Mo was Jerry only, if I say Mo. Mo
Of
was
course.
like, yeah, we're gonna go back up backstage, but you hang. So I'm in the front row watching Typo. And then I see the brothers come out at the end and sing, and Mike came out and sang, I think, 1 or 2 songs. And then afterward, Jerry comes down. He's like, come on up and hang out with Pete Steele. So I go up to the little room upstairs at the Chance with those
I
guys.
know that room. We played. We. I know the room.
Yeah, right, with all the mirrors and shit.
Yep.
So we're up there, and Pete's back there. He's got his shirt off. He's kind of hunched over, so he didn't look as towering as he usually does. And Jerry walks over. He's like, "Hey, Pete, it's my buddy Joel." Pete still looks at me, hands me a bottle of Jack Daniels, and goes, "Joel, drink." So I take the bottle of JD. I start chugging it. He's like, "Whoa, whoa, don't drink that much," and he pulls it back. And we got bullshitting. Sweet.
Pete was he was a monster on stage, but what a soft-spoken gentleman,
Yeah,
absolute gentleman. And I don't know if you were at the box set release party at Generation Records.
I missed it.
Okay, we played the after party at Kenny's Castaways,
Okay, yeah, yeah, yeah.
and there's a photo. It's on the Sardonica website, and we stop a song, and you could see Chud and Michael in the crowd, and Pete is coming around the bend to use the bathroom, and it's the song stops. He's like, "Great band!" So we go and shake hands. And somebody snapped a picture of us in mid handshake. And like I said, if you go to sardonica.com, it's on there in the photos link, and it's a really cool picture. And there's also a picture of me singing at Coney Island High, which is it's taken from the back. Tommy T took it, and it's just me with the sea of people, and it that's one of my favorite photos. I guess our next recording after Grins Again was Flip the Grill.
And that was like late 90s, right? I got
Well,
the cassette.
let me get back to the to Grins Again. What
Right,
happened
right.
was we went on tour with the Misfits '96 with the in the late winter, early spring because it was cold. Our bus was called Green Hell, and the promoter was a guy in England, and there was a band called Vampire State Building from Germany who were big fans, and they would come over all the time. And Thomas Favorite, the bass player, knew this place in the Netherlands who we had 3,000 of these printed. So the first 1,000 got shipped to the promoter. So here we are on, playing in front of 1,000 people a night. Every show was sold out. And the promoter shows up with 1,000 of my CDs. So it was just awesome. We're on this major tour and we get our first CD.
Yeah.
And it was a heartfelt memory that I'll never forget. Now the second CD, Flip the Grill, probably is our best songs, but the recording's kind of under the hat, if you know what I mean. We should have just went back to Tracks East, but we tried something else, and the guitar sound is just I would call it under the hat a wee bit, but I'm still very proud. This every song is a ripper. It's just there's not a bad song on the record. And then we got into the Free King record,
Mm.
which brought us into Manhattan with a guy named Nick Chambukis, Spin Studio. And I think it was Doug Holland from, Kraut Cro-Mags who turned me on to that studio and that producer. And another record I'm very proud of. This, if you can see it, this is the Elvis Blue Hawaii record.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
even the back, that's the back of the Blue Hawaii, and I changed everything. But I mean, the real prize is we had Joe Simcoe, who's a famous artist, and he drew this for us,
Yeah, yeah.
which is just it's. I have posters of this, and that should have been the cover. This right here should have been the cover. Doug was saying, "You got to make that the cover," but I was just so the Blue Hawaii thing. I don't know. But that is another great record, and I have to say, on all of our recordings, I always would do a cover.
Mm.
So the Grins Again record, we did a cover of Hey Joe, and like when I say cover, it's nothing like the original. We did it Sardonica's way, and it's we just punked that one out. And then the Flip the Grill cover was let's see. Hang on a second. Windy by the Association.
Right, 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 right.
And my brother's like, "What are you doing that song for?" I'm like, "We're doing it." And we punked it out, and I'm very proud of that recording. And on the Free King record, we did a cover version of Walk on the Wild Side by Lou Reed,
Mm.
which we nailed. And I'm very proud of that. And like in the beginning, we had this.
Right.
This was the single with Chud on drums, and wow, look at this. gold.
Nice.
And there's like five of these left. And I made 3,000 of the Slaughter Grace Terror Unleashed with the pit bull on the cover. Um, I made 3,000 of those. I don't even have one.
Mm.
It's unbelievable. I got some CDs, but the Terror Unleashed is not included on the CD. I wanted to keep it separate. Why? Who knows? Okay, we'll get to our last recording.
Hmm. Which is great.
Follow Me I would consider it a punk opera
Yeah.
because it's got Sardonica songs and Slaughtered Grace songs. And another cover, Touch Me,
Yeah.
with Michael Graves singing the vocals.
Right.
And I'm really proud of that. It's got another cover, Run Around Sue, with Steve Zing
Right.
singing the vocals.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm just so proud to have guys like that in my life willing to be on my record.
Yeah.
And the blend of Sardonica and Slaughtered Grace songs, I should have made it a split disc, but I didn't. I just, the songs blended so well, and it literally some of the stuff just sounds like a punk opera. I mean, the Black Sheep by Slaughtered Grace and Tragic End. It's like I said, that band should have made it.
Now, I remember this had to have been 2008 because I was out playing with my buddies in EF, Electric Frankenstein. We had a thing called Kung Fu Killers for a minute. We played Connections with Slaughtered Grace. So there was one point you kind of brought the band back for a bit, right?
We did. We did. I kind of bounced back and forth. Sardonica had a lull and Slaughtered Grace had a resurgence. I bounced back and forth. And Fish was not even involved with the Follow Me record. He had moved down the shore and was playing in his cover band, and like they were working like 4 nights a week. So he Pete Murder from Slaughtered Grace did all the guitar work on that. And I think we brought Fish in for one lead. And so the record's done. And I keep telling Nick, I'm like, Nick, I got to bring in this guy, Ronnie Paci. I got to bring him in. He's Pete's partner. And he's like, no, I like Pete. I like Pete. I'm like, you don't understand, Nick. So after it's hard to argue with a producer like that. He I, I don't want to name drop, but he like gave Madonna's daughter guitar lessons. He's just worldwide, and so I get him to bring in Pachi, and so the amp is set up in the big room, and Ronnie, and Nick are in the control room. And so Ronnie's just warming up, and Nick is still not sure. So Ronnie's playing his leads over, Pete's stuff, Pete's work. So after maybe a couple of minutes go by, as he stops, he turns around and looks at me. He goes, "I'm a fan already." So then Ronnie laid all the leads on that Follow Me and the Slaughtered Grace. I would say 80% of them are Pachi.
Mm.
He's got that Kurt Hammett, that Merciful Fate influence. And if you listen to those records, you can hear like some incredible lead work. We have a song on Follow Me called Black Sheep, and it might be the second lead after the second chorus. Nick stops the tape and he looks at me, he goes, "That might be the greatest lead in rock and roll history."
Mm.
So, I mean, if you don't know, you don't know. Like, Sardonica was a band that not that many people got. But if you got it, you got it. And a few people got it. Most of them didn't. But it's, some bands are made for greatness. Some bands are to revel in obscurity. And, I'm proud of all of our work. And gosh, I did it for 35 years, Joel. And my heart is really into it, as you know.
Yeah.
Blood,
Last,
sweat, and tears.
last time I saw you play was 2018 with Dr. Chud's X Ward at
I love that band. I had so much fun. I was Zombie Man.
Yeah, yeah. And
I
that
had so
was
much fun.
you and Al, and the Merp was on drums for that.
The Merp's the man.
Yeah.
I'm actually going. I mentioned the Florida Horror Fest, and I had these pictures made. I don't know if you could see it,
Yeah, yeah. That's
but
cool.
it's a really cool shot. So I'm gonna sit with him at his table on it's right here in Fort Myers, and I'll sit with him at his table. I'll put the makeup on at the table, and we're gonna probably play a few songs. I got my acoustic bass, my acoustic guitar. I think he's flying in today, and that'll be tomorrow at the Hilton in Bell Tower Shops at Fort Myers. Which I don't know when this is gonna air.
Yeah, we're recording this on September 27th.
Right.
So it'll be tomorrow the 28th. This will air a couple of days later.
So the 28th happens to be my birthday.
Oh, right on. Happy birthday, dude.
Thank you, bro. I'm not going to reveal how old I am, but if you know, you know.
Well, what was cool for me about that show in 2018, I saw you guys play at Dingbats, is I went down, because it's Chudley and, want to go see him play. And we're all hanging out and there's a really cool picture of all of us with Steve and, the
Yeah,
Lodi
yeah. I think
contingent.
Steve did the Zinger did the sound.
Yeah, he did. So, I'm catching up with Chud. He's like, "Hey man, you want to help set up the stage?" So I'm putting pumpkins around the stage for him and stuff. And I'm thinking it's just like it was back in the day of Pro Edge. If you stand in a room long enough, you're gonna be put to work.
Absolutely, absolutely. I had and it was Bobby Blood Feast. We played every Halloween because we toured every Halloween for maybe 5 years, and we would play this festival in Pittston, Pennsylvania, and Blood Feast created Zombie Man. He put the makeup on me before the show, and then after that, I just ran with it.
Yeah.
So he just had recently sent me and it's like the few fans that we did have were loyal, and I got I think it was either an email or a Facebook message from this kid Tim Ring when Slaughtered Grace released our single. um I would advertise in like Flipside and Maximum Rock and Roll, and I'd get letters from all over the world. I'm like, this is great. And Caroline actually pumped out probably 300 of those for me. Because I just walked into the office with the singles, and they, call 3 months later, I got your money. Can you bring some more? I'm like, absolutely. So this kid, Tim Ring, sends me a 2 paragraph. I couldn't even read it because I would uh, and how influential we were to him, and it that makes it all worthwhile. I should have sent it to you so you could have read it, because it just makes it all worthwhile. And then uh Bobby Bloodfeast who invented Zombie Man, and we met at the wedding, sent me another one saying how influential we were to him. And that kind of really hit home and made it all worthwhile.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, because the music industry sucks your blood like a mosquito. You pay for the equipment, you pay for rehearsal, you pay for the amps, you pay for everything. And sometimes you go to the show, you play a show, and they want you to sell tickets. I'm like, it just it sucks you dry, and it really beats you up, as you know. And when you put everything you have into it for so long, there comes a point where it's just like, I guess I give up. What am I going to do? I'm not, I'm not Mick Jagger bouncing around 80 years old. We never had a hit. So, and the money I spent on the bands was, forget it, you
Yeah.
know, a
Yeah.
lot. And like to have fan appreciation from, even if it's from a handful of fans, it when I read those two paragraphs, I was like, it's worth it. It's all worth it. Because we
Absolutely.
had we had a Slaughtered Grace fan club, and he sent in the first letter. He was the first member, and I actually think I thanked him on the back of the record. I thank him on the Slaughtered Grace record. Number one fan, Tim Ring. So he'll be happy to hear that.
Right on. Well, I'll tell you, man, people do remember that band. I know when we played together back in '08, when I was doing Kung Fu Killers with Sal and Danny from Bee.
Great.
Those guys were like, "Oh, Slaughter Grace is playing. That's so cool. We love those guys," and people remember.
I was a big fan of them guys, and we did a lot of shows together over the years. But they went through so many members,
Yeah.
and I remember the first singer. They would play at they would rehearse at Zounds, and if it wasn't for Zounds, Sardonica would not have existed because we would literally go there. I'm not gonna say every day, maybe 3, 4 times a week. And we were such good friends with Rick Dittamo, who owned the place and was the original sound man for Danzig.
Right, right, right.
And he would be like, going A, going B, going C. If there was nobody in the room, he'd give it to us for $10 an hour. So, like I said, if it wasn't for Zounds, because we couldn't pay 25, $30 an hour, it just wasn't going to happen. Fish had a family. I'm spending my money on recordings and getting the CDs printed,
Mhm.
and everything else. And Zounds is pivotal, and everybody rehearsed there.
Well, I know that obviously you kind of did a little reunion at Chudley's wedding, but uh,
We didn't get to play our song. We were supposed to play uh Mammalian off the Flip the Grill record,
yeah, yeah.
and we didn't get to play that. So I mean, I thought it would be a little bit more organized with the musicians than it was. So whatever, we just had a good time.
Yeah, it was
That
fun.
that backyard is like a park.
That was such a great day,
A
man.
lot
Everything
of fun.
so perfect.
A lot
And
of fun.
and Mary's lovely, of course, and
Yeah, that's actually the first time. Well, it's not the first time I met her. I met her in '96 when
mm,
we came back from Europe in '96, the first tour, which I believe was like 18 shows in like 22 days, maybe like 6 countries, 7, 8 countries. When we came back, um, their manager was the Type O manager. Help me out. Was
Winter
his name?
Ford.
No, Ken Creedy.
Ken Creedy. Okay, yeah, yeah.
So he booked them on a tour. I guess it was probably a 3 week thing, like east of the Mississippi, and we were direct support. And that was a load of fun. You know, we had the big tour bus, every show sold out. And it's like now comes the big European tour in the next summer, and that was really living our dream. We you know, like I said, you put the industry sucks everything out of you. But when something like that happens, you really feel like you made it.
Yeah.
And that's the way we felt. Even though the people weren't there to see us, they didn't buy tickets for Sardonica. But if you see some of that footage, they were just moshing like crazy. And then we did some more shows in the States, and then Geffen signed them. And that was the end of Sardonica. And now they're playing with Anthrax and
Right.
Megadeth. And there was no more Sardonica with that. But I can't tell you the last official Sardonica show. Um, when that was, but we had a lot of fun for a long time, and I'm very proud of our uh, catalog. It's not like we just wrote songs and put them out there. We made sure that our songs were solid.
Yeah.
And like I said, a lot of people didn't get it. But there was a club in Lodi called Ruins Cafe. It was right on Main Street, and the owner got us. And all the all the nationals that came through, he'd have us open up for him. Like Dee Ramone would come through, and you know, I can't remember all the shows that we did, but he'd put us on because he got us. And then when we'd play alone, he'd be screaming, "Play all night!" And it was just it was just part of being you must have been in 20 different bands. I've been in three, and it's just a lot of fun. And Joel, you're a great guy, man. I'm so proud to have you as my friend.
Oh, same here, man. I'm really happy that all these years later,
Yeah.
you're on this podcast, man,
Hey,
and
do you I was maybe a couple of months ago, I'm going through my phone and I'm like, Joel G. Who the heck is Joel G? And I'm like, could it be Joel? And I called you up and he answered. And I'm like, Joel, Sal Bee. And I'm like, dude, your number's still on my phone. I'm like, it's been all these years. So we reconnected, and I'm glad to be a guest.
listen, I gotta say the same thing. I'll give you my two paragraphs. I met you at 17. First thing you did was introduce yourself, and hand me your cassette. And I was listening to that every day. I drive up to the shop to jam with Jerry. And we've crossed paths a lot over the years. We did a lot of shows together ourselves over the years. And to see you, 30 years later, happy, healthy, see so many people from the gang back then. You guys are in my heart, and you're always going to be in my heart. And I'm really happy we connected for this. And I hope, the people who are watching this because of the Misfits got some cool information. I hope the fans of Slaughter, Grace, and Sardonica got the same. And I'm going to include information in the video description, where people can track down some of this stuff that you've put out over the years. Because if they're new to it, they really got to check it out. Important band in the history of Jersey, particularly our scene in the 90s. And really great stuff, man. And I wish you nothing but the best. And I'm glad you made that call when you found my name in your phone, man.
Thank you, Joel. I appreciate it so much, bro.
Love you big, man.
God bless, man.